Welcome to Prime Time, a show for adults in the prime of life. I'm Susan Hoskins, your host. I'm the director of the Princeton Senior Resource Center. We provide programs and services for older adults, their families, and caregivers. Today's topic is seniors and driving. My guests are Ed Baginski and Dan Shine. Ed, you're with AAA, and Dan, you're with Princeton Healthcare System Community Education, right? And you both work with a program called CarFit. Can one of you just start out by describing what the CarFit program is? And
CarFit is a program, it's an actual 12-step checklist that we use for our older drivers. And what it does is it promotes a little bit of safe driving tips and allows our seniors to have a little bit more mobility when they're driving, and we actually fit them into their vehicle. It gives them a chance to dialogue with people in a more relaxed atmosphere to talk about driving and some of their concerns. And we also give them some community resources that are available to them. It provides real quick education, and it's quick, it's easy, and it's non-confrontational. So we work with the occupational therapists as well. So we actually take the senior and fit them to their car and make them more aware of what's in the vehicle and how things work.
great. So would that include things? I know that I've run into people who said, well, the seatbelt's uncomfortable, so I don't use the shoulder harness, or, that I never use that mirror over there. So are those what are some of the kinds of things that go into fitting a car to a person?
You're correct with the seatbelt. That's one of the things that we look at. There are some things that are actually built into the car for the seatbelt system work correctly. And a lot of seniors don't even know it's there. We have adjustable anchor points on the B pillar, which is the pillar next to the shoulder in the vehicle, which allows the seatbelt to move up and down, especially for people that are a bit shorter. They say the seatbelt comes up and touches them on the neck. So we show them how that will adjust and provide them with different tips on maybe moving the seat into a different angle. But we deal with seatbelts.
Some people don't have a real good, do you need to move the back up, the seat up, some of the cars have so many different adjustments.
That's true, yeah. And we talk to them about the actual distance away from the steering wheel. Because with airbags, with the new technology, when an airbag deploys, we don't want the seniors to be too close, okay? Because there's a big misconception about airbags. So we'll actually put them in the seat and look at them in the vehicle. We talk about a number of things, their foot position on the pedals, okay? And like you said, whether we can raise them up, maybe there's something that's mechanical in the car that will bring them up so that they're not looking through the steering wheel, they're actually looking over it. And one of the critical things that we look at is how to use your rear view mirror, how to adjust it, but also the position of it. Because Ed and I have seen many times where you will put a person behind the wheel and their visibility to the rear of the vehicle is completely out of kilter. They're not using the mirrors properly. So all of this is very quick, it's very easy, takes about 15 or 20 minutes, and they learn how to do things the things that are in the car. It's a benefit to them. And they leave with a little bit more confidence because they feel that they can accomplish something. So many seniors don't know how to use their emergency flashers, how to turn them on, or even where they're located, because our manufacturers put them in different locations. So those are some of the things that we touch on, but it's a 12-point checklist, and we take them through a number of steps, and it's very non-confrontational. It's, this is between them and us. It's a relaxed conversation.
So it sounds like the goal is really to maximize safety for the person. It's not to test whether or not they should be driving. It's to say, how can you be the safest driver in your car?
Absolutely.
Is that
right? We would like to get people more comfortable in their vehicles. And the other purpose of CarFit, if people have a limitation, say they have somewhat of a flexibility problem and they can't move, if you know you have a limitation and we can adjust your car or add some pieces of equipment to your vehicle under the advice of the occupational therapist that we have with us, it makes you more comfortable in your car and therefore makes you safer. And you know you may have a problem, but you don't know what your limitation is. The occupational therapist works with the folks and we're able to make them feel more comfortable, and that makes them a safer driver. But as Dan said, there's no reporting of this. We don't record anybody's name. They come in, they get a copy of the checklist, and it's just to help them feel more comfortable. We keep some statistics from it. That's why we don't want anybody's name. Some really interesting things. AAA has come out with a list of cars with senior-friendly features that you can look up on the AAA website. It's just AAA.com. It's a free website. And you go to the senior link, and if you have a limitation, you can look at what car may help you. You're short in stature, you can't reach the pedals. Many cars have extendable brake and gas pedals that can be adjusted. We found out, very interesting, that there's a few vehicles that were made for the teens, the PT Cruiser, the Honda Element. Well, they turned out to be fantastic senior cars because they're square, you can see the edges, you have good visibility, and you slide out of them. And it's much easier for a senior to come down out of a vehicle than lift themselves out.
Yes.
So different things like that that people aren't aware of. As Dan said, our cars have so many adjustments in them now. We speak to many seniors. Their first car, all the seat may be moved up and back. That was as far as they've gotten in those older models. Now cars do a lot of things. You have 6-way power seats, extending steering wheels. The head restraints are not properly adjusted when we get people in their cars so that they can have their heads supported in a rear impact crash. So all these things are taught to the senior. Just make them feel more comfortable. Our goal is to keep them driving as safely as long as they can safely. So we don't want them driving just for the sake of driving, but we want people to feel their independence as long as they possibly can.
And, you know, that's certainly something we see in this community, is that people, driving is such a symbol of independent living. That you may need a little, you know, you'll get somebody to come and mow your grass, but you're not going to give up driving. Driving means you can go where you want to, when you want to. And we don't have good public transportation in this area. So driving means a whole lot to people.
We don't want the seniors that come to our car fit appointments to have a misunderstanding that we're evaluating their driving for the purpose of taking their license away. That's not something that we do. Okay? This is very low key. It's educational in nature, and then with the occupational therapist that we have with us, they'll walk around the car. We'll make sure that the senior has some type of mobility without leaning on the car, and make recommendations based on what the occupational therapist has seen. So we don't take someone's license away based on our evaluation. Okay.
How would a person get in touch with the CarFit program in the Princeton area?
Our CarFit program is based out of the community education and outreach program at Princeton Medical Center. So you can go through Princeton Healthcare and contact our people there.
Okay. And we'll have your contact information up at the end of the show so people can take that down. But otherwise, it would be calling the community education department and making an appointment.
Right, or AAA. And call your local AAA agency.
And it's a well-based program on a lot of research. The American Society on Aging originally started the process to develop CarFit. AARP, the American Occupational Therapy Association, and AAA all partnered with the American Society on Aging, and all brought their specialists and their different specialties to the table when this program was created. Because we know people want to know, when should I stop driving? And what are my signs to stop driving? And we're really lucky that in our country, we have about 78% of the people who should stop driving do so on their own, or they'll self-regulate. They'll drive between 10 and 2. When most people are not on the road, the daylight hours. They'll limit their distance, they'll limit their nighttime driving. So we have a very good portion of our senior population that's really a responsible group. The small portion is what we hear about in the paper. And unfortunately, those are the people that we have to reach out to and try to get them to understand that if they get lost where they're going on a familiar road, if they're afraid when they get in the car and driving makes them very nervous, if everybody's blowing the horn at you, it might not just be that, you know, it's not their fault. Something's going wrong, nobody likes the way you're driving. You might want to reassess these things, and you want to look at what part of the driving experience you may need to reevaluate, because nobody wants to hurt anyone or injure anyone by their actions. And our senior drivers are our safest drivers in the fact that they are the most experienced. You know, their crash rates rival the teen driver crash rates, but they suffer more in the crashes because of the frail nature of our bodies as we age. but they do make good decisions. It's just that they share the road with a lot of other folks, and we want everybody to feel more comfortable out there.
Right. And I think it is important, it's my understanding, that there is no guideline or law that says that at a certain age you can't drive. I know someone that was coming to our center past 100 and driving himself. It wasn't far, it's about a mile from his house to the center, but it was really important that he got there every week for his activity. And so there's no set age limit for driving.
That's correct. New Jersey doesn't have a limit. Okay, it's based on the observations of the individual, what they think, and maybe what the family members will look at. Police officers can make a determination if that individual has some issues with summonses or is involved in a motor vehicle crash. A doctor can also evaluate somebody and ask to have them retested. But overall, there is no specific law that says at a certain age you can no longer drive.
Well, let's talk about that, because I'm sure that some of our listeners watchers may have the same concern that some of my adult child caregivers have had, and that is their sense that mom or dad should not be driving anymore, either because of dementia, Parkinson's, some of the other kinds of things that, as you say, can compromise reaction time, can compromise a person's ability to find their way home again. So there's a concern, I think that mom shouldn't drive, but I can't be the one to tell her. What can they do?
One of the best things you can do is to have your senior parent or your mature driver reevaluated by a driver rehabilitation specialist. They can be occupational therapists that have this added education, or a driver trainer has this added education, and they'll take the person out for a couple of hours and put them through certain cognitive tests and driving skills, and to be able to give recommendations whether the person should be driving or not. As Dan said, only a police officer and a doctor are mandated by law to turn in someone who shouldn't be driving anymore. No other health professional is required to do that. So if you go to an occupational therapist and they give you recommendations, there's nobody reporting on you. I'm sure the occupational therapist in good moral code will really attempt to get through to the person they're talking to and maybe ask permission to speak to the family about the issue. But our state doesn't require any testing. Even small things like having your eyes examined. We recommend that people have their eyes examined minimally every 2 years, no matter who you are. We don't have that ability right now in our Motor Vehicle Commission to do the eye exams that are recommended, but there is a movement to have that changed. And they're trying to upgrade it with the new computer system, which will be great, because that won't be age discriminatory. Everyone will have to go either 8 or 10 years and have their eyes examined by motor vehicle, and then that's the main step. 90% of what we do when we drive is through our eyes.
Right.
So if you can't see, that's the first sign that you should not be behind the wheel.
Peripheral vision, distance vision, night vision.
Right. Sure. All that will be examined. And I think that, as technology advances and driver simulators and other types of equipment become more prevalent, I think there may be further types of tools available to the people who want to be reassessed.
Right. One of the things that we do is recommend that people who are concerned talk it over with a person's doctor and ask the doctor to write a referral to St. Lawrence Rehab, because they do those driver evaluations. And then it's not the family member who's making the decision, it's not the doctor, because some doctors are reluctant to make that determination too, knowing how important driving is for independence. And some doctors, one of the things I've seen is that some doctors are seeing patients for 30 and 40 years, and they too have a hard time watching someone's decline and making that kind of recommendation. So by recommending that they go to the driver evaluation program, that evaluation program is really objective and can make a determination of whether or not they can drive.
I think the seniors would not see that as a personal attack, where somebody within the family, they could see that as, well, you're trying to do something to me, you're trying to hurt me. Where somebody that's completely detached, I think they'd be more accepting of what the recommendations that were coming forth. Because one of the things to remember is that By the year 2030, we're going to have 70 million people over the age of 65, 70 million people over the age of 65, and 90% of those will still have a license. So whatever steps we take now are going to benefit us later. So a car fit program, senior driving programs are all something that we can see, and as Eddie alluded to earlier, baby boomers. Okay, the baby boomer generation is coming of age.
We are not giving up our cars.
and that's part of our concern is once that mobility leaves, where are we?
Right. In the car fit program, do you also help with do the fitting for non-drivers? I'm thinking of a lot of the seniors who come to the center who may be passengers but no longer driving. As you said, a lot of people self-limit, so they say, I don't feel comfortable driving anymore, but I'll go to this activity with so-and-so, or I'll go with the transportation program. And I realize that some of those issues, like getting a person in and out of a car, are also really critical for riders as well as drivers. You're talking about the height of the seat. It makes such a big difference when you can just slip sideways onto the seat versus the up and down movement, as well as the pivot that has to happen.
Well, we bring a whole array of occupational therapy type tools.
Okay.
There's seat slides, lazy Susans, different varieties that sit on a car seat, that turn. So some are made for bucket seats, some are made for flat seats to help you get your passenger in or out. There's different handle devices that when the car door is open, they fit in the side of the vehicle on the little metal clasp that holds the door closed. That gives the person a handle. Because if anyone who's transported someone of limited mobility to stand outside the car and reach in to help them get out, you're jeopardizing your back trying to lift someone. So this gives them something to hold on to other than the car door that they're pulling at themselves to get out of the car. So we do go over a lot of those type of tools that are available, different knob turners that people with arthritis can add to their key ring, to add to their keys so they can turn the key to their car and start it. Some folks are, my car won't start. Well, no, your car is fine, you just can't grab the key anymore. But, you know, arthritis is a very limiting disease, but it doesn't, your brain is not limited. So if we could add a piece of equipment to your car to make it safe for you to drive, that's something that we would like to do, and help you get your passengers in and out.
Right. Sounds like a great program for us to offer at the center and have you come and demonstrate some of these things. We'll set that up after we're
It's a really good idea because a lot of people don't know what's available.
Yeah.
So our program is showing you these are the tools that you can use,
Okay.
right, to assist you in everyday driving. And like Ed said, if you have an older individual that's transporting somebody, they may not have the physical strength to actually bend down to pick somebody up either. So any little tip that we can provide for them to make life a little bit easier and a little bit safer, it's well worth the effort. And like you said, it's you know, it's very non-confrontational, and it's only about 20 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
So it's easy, and we also ask them how many people drive the vehicle, because we'll fit it for hopefully the husband and wife. If they both drive, they'll both come to the event, and we'll fit them both in the car because that's something that we have to change.
That's one of the things I was thinking when you were talking earlier. I see so many people, like women, who scooch up on the seat because they'd rather do that than move all the mirrors and the...
Well, one of the other things
Don't mess with my settings.
We teach people, you know, most of older drivers were taught to drive 10 and 2. Well, as you know, the steering wheel is tilted towards the front of the car. So the higher you grab it, the more you're pulling your body towards the steering wheel. So they're pulling themselves into that airbag. With power steering and the smoothness that our vehicles have today, we want them down maybe as low as 8 and 4.
Oh,
and
wow.
to feed the hands, and particularly for long distance drives, which should be no more than 90 minutes for a mature driver. You should stop every 90 minutes and relax. But this is much more comfortable than this.
Yeah.
And even driving through the regular community traffic just in your local area, particularly for women, because men have their center of gravity at their shoulders, women's their center of gravity is at their hips, and most women don't have the upper body strength that men have, and as we age, we all lose our strength. This is a much more comfortable way to drive, and that moves them back even further from the airbag. And, you know, we want them, as Dan said, we want them back from that 200-mile-an-hour ball that's opening until it becomes a pillow. We want them to hit it while it's soft, not while it's exploding. So that gets them back. And if we can't get them back far enough without having them lose reach of the pedals, we'll add pedal extenders. metal blocks to help them be able to drive better. And I've been involved with CarFit since 2004 and many events. There were 2 people in the entire time we've been doing this that we really requested not to drive home.
Wow.
So the percentage of most people is we can fit their car to make them feel more comfortable, and they leave much more confident. And we do an after-event phone survey. If on a different list of folks, when they sign up, we have their phone number, and ask them about the event. And it's a very positive response. And Dan mentioned if there's 2 drivers, we would like them both to come. This is such a simple program. We give them a copy of the worksheet that we work with for them with their information on it. As I said, no name, just all the information we did. They can take it home and share it with their spouse.
That's great.
So it's very simple. It's really kept that way so that everybody can benefit from it, and they can actually show other family members how to make themselves more comfortable in the car once they attend.
That's great. Let me just make sure we have time to talk about one more part about older adults and driving, and that is the driver's courses that reduce your car insurance. I know that a lot of people call and ask for the AARP program, but I know that AAA also has one, and yours is also online, right?
Yes.
So it can be a home study course.
Ours is online, mature operator. In the state of New Jersey, it has to be 4 hours for the mature operator course, so you don't have to do it all at once. You can do an hour now, half hour. You have 30 days to complete it once you sign on to it. And then you're given a certificate that will give you a 5% reduction on your liability portion of your car insurance. And if you unfortunately have some driving points, it will remove 2 of those every 3 years, on top of what you would normally have through expiration from motor vehicle for points.
I think it's just good to have that kind of a tune-up. I know that a job that I had in my late 20s required me to do a safe driving course as part of the job because I was driving company vehicles. And I found it really interesting that 10 years into being a driver to go through that defensive driving coursework and really made me be a lot more conscious about some of the things in driving. And so I think
we all
helpful.
develop bad habits.
Yeah.
It's something we do constantly. Unfortunately, we don't realize it's the most dangerous thing we do every day. We lose more people to car crashes than we do to any other major situation. We did really well in the state of New Jersey last year. We had the lowest fatality rate since 1948.
Wow.
But we still lost 584 people.
Yeah.
Nationwide, our figure for 2009 is coming in around 33,000, which is a severe drop from 2006 when it was 43,000. So I think that the increased safety in our cars, the awareness of people trying to be safer drivers and taking these courses, and no matter how old we are, we could all relearn what we do on a regular basis. And you're absolutely right. Doing these refresher courses for something that's so important to all of us is a really a great thing, and it does make us all a lot safer.
How often does one need to retake that?
Every 3 years.
Every 3 years. And Princeton Healthcare Community Ed hosts those classes as well, doesn't it?
I don't know if we do the driving courses. That's something I'd have to look into.
Okay.
We would normally refer people to Eddie,
Okay.
AAA or AAA Mid-Atlantic, which is right in Hamilton, and tell them to talk to those people there to see what's available for them.
Right. I know that AARP has offered them locally, either at their Forrestal campus or someplace like the Community Ed, and sometimes at our place. So if you want information on that, just give us a call. That's part of our information and referral, is to know all those answers. And I'm pretty confident that you gave one in this last quarter. So we'll make sure that people get connected to those things.
Yeah. One of the things that we've seen when we do the CarFit program is we'll see seniors that have their handicap parking permit still attached to the mirror while they're driving. If you read the back of that placard, it tells you that it must be removed when you're driving. Okay, it's a handicap parking permit, and it's not a handicap driving permit. So what that does when it's hanging on the mirror, one, a police officer could give you a summons for that, but the other situation is it's actually a view obstruction. If you're driving in this area, especially with the college, you have a lot of students that are crossing. You may not be able to see them. As Ed spoke to earlier, you're losing some of your vision. So you don't want to impede what your eyesight is by having something that really shouldn't be there in the first place. So we see a lot of that. We explain that to people when they come in, that just put it in the door, put it over the sun visor, but try not to leave it on the rear view mirror, because that's a real issue for us. And pedestrian accidents and fatalities in New Jersey are on a rise. So anything we can do to eliminate just one is something that we're looking to get where we want to go very quickly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it sounds like, to sum up, Eddie, you were talking earlier about some of the things that are good signs to look for that you may need to reassess whether you should be driving or whether someone you care about should be driving. Age is not a criteria,
Right.
But one of those things you said was vision impairment.
Vision is the most
One of those
important.
things is dementia, if you can't remember how to get home.
Cognitive
go through that.
abilities while you're driving, having everybody blow the horn at you. You know, being nervous. Does driving upset you? If driving upsets you, then that's a sign that you might want to look at it. If family and friends are mentioning to you very nicely and lovingly that you're not doing things right, that might be something. If a police officer stops to talk to you about driving, and what we find is police officers are very compassionate with our mature drivers, and maybe aren't issuing a summons. They're doing it as a lecture. That's something that you really want to pay attention to. The other thing we like to tell people, particularly family members, one of the things we do in CarFit that anybody can do with their mature driver is walk around the car, look at the damages on the vehicle. If the driver cannot tell you how the car got damaged, that's a serious sign. That damage could be a person the next time.
Yeah. I think also just seeing more and more dents and bangs and dings are indications, for example, that a person is not using good judgment in pulling in and out of parking spaces, or how close they're driving to another vehicle. Someone I talked to recently was saying that her father-in-law got picked up for sideswiping 7 cars in a row, and her brother-in-law wanted to get Dad a new car, and she and her husband were trying to say, no, this is it, because as you say, you know, we want to get a person off the road before they injure somebody else.
You know, our goal is to keep people driving. It really is, because as you mentioned earlier, in our society, in our country, it's very hard to get around without a car. So our goal and role is to try them to have them be driving as long as possible, but let people know when it is time to go, they should give up the keys.
That's great. Well, this has been very informative. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Dan.
Thank
you.
I
You're
really appreciate your
Thank you for having
coming
us.
today.